What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 10-7 MMA show with me, Huzefa, and of course, the resident professional, Justin James. And I believe you're filming, is that Extreme Couture in the background?
I'm at Extreme Couture right now. Pro Prax is about to head off. Dennis Davis is here, head coach of Extreme Couture. If you want any insight from what he thinks, he's right around the corner. He's free for 30 more minutes. So if we want any insight from another professional, we have it. Pro Prax Extreme Couture starts in 30 minutes. So you guys might see some familiar faces popping by as we go.
Awesome. Okay. So anyways, today we have got three things that we're going to cover in particular, because there's a lot of exciting things happening. February 11th, which is something we're going to talk about at the very end, but I'm so excited for this Perth card with Islam and Volkanovski at the top of the list. And Ariel had a really cool interview with Volkanovski today, just talking about the size differential and how he's feeling. So we're going to touch base on that. But first, I wanted to start with something that was recently officially announced, and that is Leon Edwards versus Usman 3. And there's like a lot of interesting things about this fight. Like when I've heard a lot of other pundits and fighters talk about the fight, they're kind of giving it 50-50. And I'm really curious to get your thoughts. So let me tell you where I'm coming from. I do think that Leon was sincere when he was talking about the altitude affecting him. And I'd love to hear your thoughts as a fighter, like how much of an effect that can have on your cardio, because it didn't make sense how winded he was getting. So I do think he's mentioned that he still made it to 5 rounds. And I think now he's going to have a much bigger advantage being in the UK, being with the home crowd, and not having to deal with those cardio issues. And then there's also this other added complexity of, hey, like Usman just got knocked out. So first and foremost, what are your thoughts now we're in London where they don't have to deal with the altitude? What are your feelings on this third matchup?
You know, altitude is a real thing. There's no doubt about it. I've competed. I've trained high altitude. I've trained at low altitude. It definitely is a thing. But we're talking about fighting for the world championship. It's not like he showed up and realized the day he showed up, oh shit, this altitude is going to affect me. You know, he knew months and months in advance. Kind of a bullshit excuse for him gassing out. You know, honestly, I think maybe nerves got the best of him. I mean, he's fighting for a world championship. There's no shame in the nerves getting the best. But to say, oh, the altitude, man, I know guys that will if they know that they're fighting in the altitude, they're going to go there and they're going to train there for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, just to have that adjustment there. So do I buy that, oh, the altitude affected his cardio? Maybe it did a little bit. But again, we're at talking about the championship, man. This isn't an undercard. This isn't a short notice fight. He had plenty of time to know where this fight was going to be. He had plenty of time. And if he didn't know the altitude was going to affect him, he needs to really look at his coaching staff and make some adjustments, because his coaches should have knew right away that this was at high altitude, that it was going to be tough on his cardio, and they should have been preparing for that. But yeah, back in the UK, bringing it back down. He's going to home. He's fighting in his, I don't know if it's his hometown, but I know it's over in the UK. You know, maybe it was just an excuse to get through, just to get the home field advantage for this next third fight.
So now, and I believe it's in the O2 Arena, if I'm not mistaken. So now for this next fight, do you lean a particular way based on that, or the cardio? You're saying maybe you're not fully buying, but like, do you have a leaning in one particular way or the other based on how the Usman, the second fight went?
You know, I'm definitely leaning towards Usman. I think he's going to open up as the favorite. Here's the thing, this is prior to this fight, I always think, Kamaru Usman to me is one of the greatest of all time, one of the greatest welterweights, very close to a GSP. Now, one thing GSP has done that Usman has not, that really separates, and some people are going to argue with me about this point, but GSP gets knocked out by Matt Serra, wins a fight. I don't remember how many he had to get a title shot back if he had an immediate title rematch, but he was able to battle back through that adversity, able to battle back through being knocked out by Max Serra to come out. And I think the definition of a true champion is to be shown adversity. That's one thing I feel Khabib he never really dealt with any adversity. I think there was one fight that was a little close, 50-50. I can't remember the opponent he had that I thought he lost. But again, he never lost. He never had to deal with that feeling of being knocked out and trying to come back. I think if Kamaru Usman comes back and wins this fight, which I think he's able to do, he's going to be one of the greatest of all time at number 2 in my book at 170. Because again, a real champion knows how to deal with adversity. It's easy to be the way you are when you're winning, but to lose and then come back and get it all back, I think that's the true definition of a champion. And I really think that Usman's going to do it. And to me, he's going to be number 2 welterweight of all time.
And what about that knockout? Do you think that is going to we talked, I think, on the last episode about getting knocked out or having a bad knockout like that and leaving a piece of yourself in the ring. Like, do you see that having any impact or any noticeable impact, or you just feel like he's mentally so strong, so tough, it's not going to be an issue?
You know, it's always going to be an issue. It's always going to be an issue. And you take and he didn't get fucking clipped. He was knocked out, bro. He took that left head kick like a fucking champ, right on the chin, bro. Dead.
Yeah.
Now, again, going back to champion status, talking about all-time great status. If you can't battle with the adversity of getting badly knocked out, I mean, you're not going to be one of the all-time greats. You know, GSP got knocked out, not as brutally, but he got knocked out and he came back with vengeance, and he toyed with Matt Serra and ended up finishing him off. Now, I think Usman has a really chance to do that, and I hope he does. But if he doesn't, if he is gun shy, you know, he might open Leon up, and Leon's going to start throwing his weapons at. And if he plays gun shy to those high kicks, I mean, it might be a short night. And if he loses 2 in a row, he's not going to be, to me, one of the greatest welterweights of all time.
And do you have
wait, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that.
Yep.
I said not one of the greatest of all time. He already is one of the greatest of all time. To be a true great champion, I want to see him battle back from this adversity. I've met the guy. I've trained with the guy. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a great human being. I think he's mentally strong with that wrestling background. I really think he's going to come back vengeance, or at least I'm hoping he does.
And what do you see in terms of do you see it going to a decision, a 5-round decision, or do you have a feeling?
You know, I really think it's going to go to decision here. And you know what I really want? I want Usman to work in his wrestling. I think he's an incredible wrestler. He's very explosive. I think he can take this fight to the ground and grind Leon out. Maybe get him to break his will, and maybe towards the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, and look for a late fight finish here. You know, I just don't. Usman is an incredible wrestler. His wrestling is above the most. I just want to see him incorporate a little more. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Edwards took Usman down at one point, whether it was the 1st round or 2nd, and that plays
Yes.
a mental part of the game. You know, we're talking about Usman, which is an incredible wrestler, getting taken down by Leon Edwards. I'm sure he wasn't really expecting that, so that definitely plays in the confidence of the game. But if Usman can come in, apply some pressure, take him down, grind him up for a couple rounds, you might break Edwards towards the later rounds, maybe gets a late fight finish.
And I think he was the only person who was officially, I think Kobe got a takedown, but it wasn't counted. But I think he's officially the only person to ever get a successful takedown in Usman, which is really interesting. And Edwards just had a great interview with Ariel Helwani on Monday. And I don't know, I you know, you're the expert, of course, but like, I'm just so fascinated. And I think that, Leon seems ultra confident, talking about how much he's been working on his wrestling. So I cannot wait to see this fight. Super exciting. Okay, let's move on to topic number 2, which is McGregor versus Chandler, and potentially on TUF, on The Ultimate Fighter. So we talked last time about McGregor versus Tony Ferguson. I think Tony had tweeted somewhere that he was in talks or something like that. And then I saw Chandler earlier this week on with DC, talking to DC, and basically dismissing the notion that Tony's going to be on TUF. It's actually,
Hey, what's up, bro? How you doing, bro? Good seeing you.
I think it's more him being talked about as the potential opponent against McGregor. So first of all, let's not even talk about the entertainment side of just what that dynamic's going to be like on TUF. But like, what do you think about the matchup of McGregor versus Chandler?
McGregor versus Chandler is an incredible matchup. All right, I trained with Mike Chandler for a couple of years early on in my days at Extreme Couture, back when he was in Bellator, even before he got to Bellator. This guy kicks like a freaking mule. All right, his leg kicks, just like Justin Gaethje, are devastating. Now, with Conor's going to come out in a southpaw stance, you know, I really think that Chandler is going to be trying to kick that leg out, because we know that back leg. We got to test that left side, or that left leg of McGregor, and the best way to do that is take away his front leg so he switches his stance. I really think Chandler's, again, going to apply the pressure with the leg kicks. And once those legs get chopped up, I mean, Mike, I'd love to see him go back to his wrestling, because he's such a dominant wrestler. And we look in the past, and that's where McGregor's, you know, kind of stumbled before. You know, gets taken down by the Diaz after getting clipped. Not to mention, Chandler has incredible power in both hands, and he has a gas tank. McGregor's known to fade in the later rounds. If we can get if Chandler can get a clip or tear that front leg apart in the early rounds, it's going to be a long night for Conor. And, you know, I mean, what is Conor, like 1-4 out of his last 5? Like, this is a dangerous matchup for him. I don't like it as a comeback fight for him, because Chandler's the guy to beat him, you know. But with that being said, I said that about Eddie Alvarez too. I thought it was going to be a similar matchup, and Eddie cowered to him. You know what I mean? It was an Eddie Alvarez that I hadn't seen before. long as Chandler sticks to his game plan and presses forward and chops out that front leg, and I'd like to see mix up the takedowns, I think it's going to be an easy night for Chandler.
Yeah, I think he seems like he has more weapons in general, kind of like more ways to get it done, which is interesting. I did hear Dustin Poirier get asked about it, who's fought both Chandler and Conor. He favored Conor for whatever reason. I think because of just the precision and Michael Chandler's like aggressive nature, the way he fights, and saying, hey, he might be able to clip him coming in on a counter or something like that. But I do think that makes a lot of sense in terms of, hey, he's got all these different ways to mix it up. I think that would be a really interesting fight in terms of them hosting on the Ultimate Fighter. What are your, I mean, let me tell you my thoughts from just a fan perspective. I think I'm okay with I mean, I'll watch it no matter what, but I do feel like it will be a whole lot of being cordial to each other, which will be all right, but maybe not the most exciting. But what are your thoughts?
You know, I love the entertainment value. Conor McGregor's brought something to the sport, the WWE look of the sport that not many other people have had. Some people have tried. Colby's trying desperately, but you can tell he's trying too hard. You know, I think Colby's a really nice guy. I've heard nothing but good things about him, but this show he puts on, it's so fake. Conor, although a little bit of it is showmanship and a little bit of it is fake, but he's so witty and he's so quick. He makes everybody believe in everything he says. You know, he could sell fucking ketchup popsicles to a woman in white gloves with how he talks, his confidence. It's radiating off him. So I'd hate. I mean, if Tough has Chandler and they don't talk shit the whole show, I mean, the show's gonna bomb. Now you look at Tony Ferguson, super cool dude, super tough fighter, goofy as all hell. Yeah. Like I think putting Tony in the spot for the Tough show is going to give Conor ammunition to fire. Chandler, what he's going to say about Chandler? Chandler looks like a freaking Greek god. He's chiseled 24/7. He's an incredible fighter. I mean, what's he going to say, that he's lost? Well, guess what? Conor's 1-4 in his last 5. I mean, there's not much ammo there. But with how goofy Ferguson is, I really think that's going to give Conor a lot to play with, and it's going to make for good television.
I hope that I think it would be better. Actually, I think it'd be more fun if it was Tony. But then I've been hearing, at least that's what Michael Chandler was saying in the last thing interview that I saw, that the Tony Ferguson talks aren't real or legitimate, or I don't know. But anyways, yeah, I do agree that would be I think that would be a much more fun dynamic in terms of the show. But I think the McGregor Chandler fight would be better, but either fight I'm game for. So anyways, we'll see what happens on that front. Super exciting if Conor does make a return, which Coach Kavanaugh said he would bet the house or bet the mortgage or something like that Conor's returning this year. All right, let's take it to our final topic. We're a week away from this fight, and it's a week and a half on February 11th in Perth. And I wanted to get more of your thoughts. So there's just a lot of interesting things around this fight. And I was listening to Volkanovski's interview today, addressing the fact that, there's a pretty substantive height differential and height advantage that Islam has. And he said some interesting things, just being like, hey, I've always dealt with the height differential. This has never been a thing for me. So he's going into familiar territory. And by the way, I think Max Holloway was pretty tall. I think he's 5'11" or 5'10", if I remember correctly. And he was able to get inside, no problem. Obviously, Islam's a different beast. But the first thing I want to ask, because they did bring this up on Ariel's show today, was the fact that Khabib won't be coaching Islam. What do you think? How much of an impact is that going to have, if any?
Honestly, I'm not sure, dude. Like that is an interesting dynamic of this fight. There's so many interesting things, like you're saying, about this fight coming up. Khabib's not going to be in Islam's corner. You talk about Volkanovski overcoming Holloway's reach with the height. Well, guess what? Holloway isn't a world-class wrestler. He's a world-class striker. So Volkanovski can apply that kind of pressure on him, knowing he's not going to get taken down in the same sense. I think if he tries to overwhelm Islam with his strikes, he's going to be setting himself up for a takedown in the long next. So, and then we look into Khabib. How much is that going to play a factor? Honestly, I have no idea. You're talking about someone this guy has looked up to his whole career, who coached him all the way to gold, and now he's doing a super fight against, the pound for pound best fighter in the world, and his coach is kind of, I hate to say it, but kind of abandoning him. This is a huge fight. This is a huge fight for the UFC. This is a huge fight for the sport. This is the two best pound for pound fighters going on. And his coach is like, all right, I'm just going to sit this one out. I mean, personally for me, man, that I couldn't imagine that happening. I couldn't, Dennis Davis is over here. He's been coaching me since 2009. I can't imagine having the biggest fight in the world and him being like, I'm going to sit this one out, guys. I'm done coaching. It's just like, man, I mean, I know there's more to the story, and we're just going off what the media is telling us. But I mean, we'll see what happens, man. From a betting standpoint, I'm staying away from this fight. If Islam came in with Khabib 100%, you know, he's gonna have a great game plan. He's gonna have great striking. He's gonna have great wrestling. I'm gonna put my house on him. But right now, with the mental aspect, I'm staying away from this one. This is gonna be too good to watch.
I hate to say, and too, look, I have so much absolute respect for Khabib. He's one of my favorite, probably if not my favorite fighter of all time, but definitely one of them. And but it is so strange to me. I know he's got his priorities and stuff, but I agree with you. It's kind of strange. I mean, this is such a massive fight, but I guess he has his reasons. So if we let's now play this out. Let's say Islam does beat Volkanovski, which I think is the likely outcome. In terms of the pound for pound. In terms of the pound for pound list, does that mean, right? So Volkanovski's at the top right now. Does that mean that it would be logical for Islam to go to the top, or would that not make sense at this point, in your opinion?
I'm not going to say it wouldn't make sense. Of course, it makes sense, but we're talking about a guy that this is his first title defense. You know what I mean? How many title defenses Volk have? Do you know off the top of your head?
A lot. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm guessing like 4. I'm thinking Korean.
I mean, that's incredible.
No, it's actually more. It's got to be more. It's got to be more because him and Max fought 3 times, right? So he beat him twice as the champ, and then he beat Korean Zombie. He beat what's his name? The T City Ortega.
Ortega.
So is that 4? I think that's all I can remember. Yeah, I think he's at 4.
So when we talk about the best pound for pound fighter, it's hard for me to get behind or bandwagon somebody that is, I mean, they're the champion. They're definitely the best in the weight class right now. But, you know, a real champion defends. And before I start saying that he's the best pound for pound in the world, let's see him get, again, just like Khabib, let's see him get through a little adversity. I mean, he hasn't seen any adversity yet, you know, and eventually that time will come. And Volkanovski might give him that adversity to see. So we'll see, man. I mean, again, back to my opinion of being a true champion, being the best for the best is dealing with adversity. Look at Volkanovski. Look at the adversity he's overcome. Look at when he fought Brian Ortega. He was in a deep choke.
Mm-hmm.
No, he was in danger of being finished. You know what I mean? And then he battled out of it, came back. That to me is a champion. Guys that are just going in there and smashing everybody with, you know, not taking any damage, not taking any bad spots. I mean, yes, to an extent, if he does this for 10 years, I mean, obviously he's going to be the best ever. But again, he just got his belt. Give this guy a chance to defend the belt. Give him a chance to fight the best in the world and prove to me and everybody else that he deserves to be the pound for pound champion. I feel Volkanovski has done that time and time again, and he's trying to do it against Islam right now.
And last thing before we wrap up this show, who do you think in the lightweight division after this fight, let's assume Islam wins, who do you think gives him the most problems, the most difficult fight?
And that's really tough to say right now. I thought Gaethje was going to give Khabib an incredible fight. What's up, my brother? Matt Burnell, Bellator, soon to be champ, BMF Bellator champ. I'm sorry, what was the question?
So, like, yeah, who do you think you were saying? You thought Gaethje would give Khabib some trouble, right?
Yeah, I thought because being a Division I wrestler, being a slugger, you know, I thought he'd be able to defend the takedown a little bit better than he could. And I would say the same about him and Islam. But look, he was finished in the second round. How can I get? I mean, dude, it's gonna be tough right now, man. I guess I got to see a little bit more of Islam to see where his strengths are over and over. Because again, until the title fight, I didn't really watch Islam fight. You know, he was kind of an irrelevant name. He doesn't have a personality. He's very, very tough. He's obviously the champion. But, you know, the fights that intrigue me the most are the Conor McGregor fights, the shit talking, see who's going to come out on top. Islam's super humble and he's super tough, and I respect the hell out of him for that. But I want to see him under the lights. I want to see him prime do for that matter.
All right, so you cut in just a little in and out just at the end there, but I think we got the gist of it, and I totally agree that I want to see him take it up to the next notch. I do agree with you on that entertainment value, but I actually do think Islam is actually pretty funny. He just doesn't like to do interviews that much, but him and Khabib have a cool sense of humor, but it's just very dry. Anyways, I cannot wait for this fight. Maybe we can talk about it more next week as more interviews go down. And I'd love to know too, once we see the weigh-ins, I don't know if you ever look at the weigh-ins and like, oh, that looked like a tough weight cut, and you change your predictions or your thought processes like just from watching fighters go through that process. So I'd be curious to chat again after the weigh-ins next Friday. But anyways, that's it for today. Thank you so much, Justin, for joining, and thank you everybody else for joining. If you like what you see, make sure to click that like button. If you want to see more, hit subscribe, and we will see you in the next video. Take it easy. All right.